Hey, Liberty North AP Psych Testers. This is Thursday, April 30th. Review prep session number 4. And so we're just going to continue down and go down each chapter, kind of give you the main points to hopefully get that back in your memory, get it fresh, and then we still should have time to go over some practice questions at the end. And you can do those at any time you want at Fiveable or at the AP Central resources that I have for you on Canvas. Okay. All right. And then also, again, remember, no live streams on Friday, so there won't be any prep session tomorrow. Take the day off if you need to. Make sure you take good care of yourself, especially as we start to wind down and everything's going on. But you can also work on AP Psych, or you can work on any other class tomorrow. So no review tomorrow. Okay. All right. So today, if you want to get out your chapter 3, AP learning targets, and they are actually a part of the unit that had number 2 in it. I just want to add that to the review for question number 1. So we talked about chapter 2, okay, which is biology and behavior. Okay. Make sure your essential questions, learning targets, make sure you look at your brain structures for that one. Okay. And then we also need to add chapter 3 onto that, which is the genetic part of it. Okay. So chapter 3, which is considered the same unit, we just divided them up into chapters. And this one is genetics, nature, nurture. Okay. So I will also tell you that in some way, shape, or form, nature and nurture is probably going to be implemented on the test, and it'll be added to, supplemented, or whatever. And we have pounded that into your brain as well as other classes have. So hopefully you know the nature and nurture debate, but just make sure that you have that fresh, okay? Then also culture, right? Culture, okay? AP really wants you to know and understand that culture influences your behavior. So make sure that you are versed on that. And again, we have been over and over and over that as well. So within chapter 3, you have 2 very key concepts that AP really likes to test on as well. So I can almost guarantee, again, that you're going to have something from these 2 chapters on question 1 and maybe infused into question 2. But definitely there'll be a nature and nurture component, and then there'll be a culture component. Okay, so make sure that you are aware of that. So nature is biology, nurture is our environment, culture being a part of our environment. Again, our environment can be broken down into many different things. We have many different environments that influence us in many different ways. So they can be big or large, but culture is definitely a huge one. Okay, so just be ready to, and again, if you want more of an example of what the questions are going to be like, look at your essential questions, okay? Because those are much more broad. So like there are 3 essential questions for this unit, okay? The first one is, how can biology influence our behavior and mental processes? Okay, that's huge, right? But that would be like a question number 1, okay? Although it probably would be more like, how does nature and nurture influence our behavior and mental processes? Okay. Number 2 is, what happens when a particular neurotransmitter, okay, is absent from the body? All right. So again, hopefully you'll be able to answer that. There's a variety of ways that could influence behavior. Okay. And then number 3 is, how do biological and environmental factors interact to influence our behavior and mental processes? Number 3, okay? And I think number 3 would probably be the best example, because you could also then use 2 and 1 to answer 3, okay? So the overarching question is going to be very general like that, and then your tasks will be more specifically related to that, okay? Okay, so again, know the nature influences on our behavior, specifically with genetics, right? Remember your twin studies. Okay, let's see here, what else we got? Yeah, don't forget evolution. evolutionary psychology as part of this as well. Okay, so don't just focus on the genetic heredity part. Remember that that's another side that's on there as well. And then really the two key concepts, vocab terms from this chapter are heritability. Okay, heritability. Again, we don't debate anymore if we like to take on intelligence. Intelligence, we know, is influenced by both nature and nurture. We just want to find and try to establish which one's the bigger player, which one plays the dominant part. Okay, so if it has a high heritability factor, that means nature, okay, genes, heredity, biology is the main factor. Okay, so like intelligence today, we believe it has a high heritability factor, meaning that its biggest influence is from nature. It does have nurture influences, even culture influences, but the bigger player is genetics, okay? So that's heritability factor. So heritability is indicating whether nature is the bigger player or not, okay? And then also the key concept of adaptive value, okay? Adaptive value, which gets into that evolutionary side, okay? A trait, a behavior has adaptive value means it's going to increase our survival, okay? It's going to be beneficial as a species, right? So if something has high adaptive value, it means that we want to pass that on. That's going to increase the survival of me or my family or whatever. So that's a huge one. I know adaptive value was actually used specifically last year, I think. So, but adaptive value, right? So something has high adaptive value. I want to pass it on. It's going to increase behavior and success and survivability. If something has low adaptive value, it means it does the opposite. It promotes the death of the species, the dysfunction of the species. So if you remember back to our lab for chapter 3, you had to do your genogram. Okay, you had to diagram your family, and then you mapped your family, right? The genogram is the nature part of it. And so you wrote down kind of anything that would be genetic or heredity, basically anything, from illness to good to bad. Okay. Now the good things would have a high adaptive value and you would want to pass those on, right? And the bad things would have a low adaptive value, meaning that you would not want to pass those on because they would most likely negatively impact survivability. So again, in psychology, when we're talking about disorders, mental illness, that generally has low adaptive value. You don't want to pass that on. Bad eyesight, low adaptive value. Okay. We even talked about, athleticism and muscle coordination is probably something you want to pass on that has high adaptive value. Okay. So remember that concept there. Okay. Because there's only 3 learning targets from this chapter. Discuss psychology's abiding interest in how heredity, environment, evolution work together to shape behavior. Okay. Okay. And that's very similar to essential question number 3. Okay. Identify key research contributions of scientists. Okay. And the 2 big ones you need to know are Charles Darwin, which is evolutionary theory, and then Sir Francis Galton, who was kind of really our first pioneering researcher in the area of heredity. He did a lot of studies, twin studies on intelligence. He believed it was genetic. Okay, so remember those 2 big names. And then number 3 is predict how traits and behavior can be selected for their adaptive value. Okay. So in the past, they've asked you, what would be an example of a behavior or a trait that would have high adaptive value, that would have low adaptive value. And I think on your lab for chapter 3, I had you do 3 of each based on your genogram and your map. So it might be fun to go ahead and pull that out again and look at that. All right. And then the last thing is just make sure you know some high nurture influences on behavior. So the book talks about peers. Remember that peers at your age have kind of taken over as the main influence over your family. But you have peers, you have family, right? Remember you have that environment, that nurturing, enriched environment. With the study with the rats, so you have enriched or impoverished. So enriched rats are raised in a very healthy environment that again would have high adaptive value, and their neurons develop faster and they're stronger. If you're raised in a impoverished environment, low adaptive value, right? And then then your neurons do not grow as fast. Okay, so and they're not as strong. So hopefully I didn't mix those up. So impoverished environment would have low adaptive value, yeah, and a healthy environment, enriched environment would have high adaptive value. Okay, so also the book talks about that. So make sure the book talks about three, talks about family, peers, and then talks about culture. Right, so your culture. So obviously, living in America, we have high adaptive value, right? Because we just overall have a long lifespan, healthy lifespan. We have better medicine, technology. We have a lot of advantages. So our culture would promote high adaptive value, and other cultures, third world cultures, some ways would have low adaptive value, but there would be high in others as well. I think that we're figuring that out with COVID-19, just able to slow things down, make things simple, relax more, just slow our pace down, which all those things would have high adaptive value. Okay. All right. Any questions for anybody watching on chapter 3? Okay, so again, I can't emphasize how important it is to make sure you know chapters 2 and 3. There will be some context of biology, the biology of behavior, or neuroscience on the test. I mean, there just always is. Chapter research and biology, there's always something. So make sure you know those, your essential questions, your learning targets, vocab, and everything. Again, make sure you remember that on Monday, you have an AP exam demo, okay? So get on AP Central, look for the times on that, hit the link on Canvas. You can go to Canvas and hit the link there. But again, I think that's a great idea. Make sure you feel comfortable with the technology, what's going to be asked of you, what you're going to have to do with your laptop on test day, so that you can kind of just remove all the worries and cares about that, and you can just focus on the curriculum and answering the test, okay? Also there's plenty of, so while we're covering and reviewing the information, you could be, practicing your exams, the free response that you have. They have examples of those. I mean, again, what AP is doing for students this year is phenomenal. It is far above and beyond anything they've ever done. So take advantage of it. Use those resources. All right. So then starting on Monday, we're going to go over the next biggest chunk that is going to be on the test. That's going to be the cognitive part of the curriculum. So that's going to be intelligence and thinking, mainly memory. And we're going to cover that area together because that's usually the next biggest hit. I guarantee there'll be something from the cognitive factor that's on there as well. All right. And then after that, they pretty much all have kind of the same weight, same value as far as the AP test goes. So we'll kind of then we'll probably go back to chapter 4. We'll do development, and then we'll just keep moving in order. Okay. All right. You guys have a great weekend. All right. Good luck. Again, tomorrow, no live stream. Take a break. Take care of yourself. Get caught up on anything you need to do. As always, I'm always here. So email me, contact me, send me a question.